Hello, this is Adam Bernard with AutoPerspectives, and it is time again for a news roundup. Now, this week we have the Munich Motor Show, otherwise known as the IAA or IAA, or if you've been in this business for a while, the event formerly known as the Frankfurt Motor Show until it moved to Munich in 2021. So there will be quite a bit of news coming out of Europe this week, but the good news is that last week a number of things were shown just a little early, so we'll have some stuff to talk about today. We will start with Audi's TT moment. So just as Ford had a Model T moment a few weeks ago, Audi had a moment with the Concept C, which as you can see, does echo a bit the now out of production Audi TT. It is the first design from Audi's new creative officer who started back in June. He is ex-JLR. And he brings to this vehicle some design elements from the original TT, like the 6-spoke wheels and the thick C-pillar. The vertically oriented grille that you see up front kind of replaces what they call the single frame. It's inspired by the Auto Union Type C, which one assumes is how this vehicle got its name. And up front, you can also see the new light signature with 4 horizontal elements. You'll see those at the back as well, and that echoes the 4-ring logo. The Concept C is actually Audi's first retractable hardtop. Not a full hardtop, it's actually a 2-piece Targa. To be honest, we're seeing a lot fewer convertibles in the market these days, and I'm not sure if any kind of open air capability is intended for production, but we'll have to wait a couple of years to find out. You'll note from this view that like the Polestar 4, there is no rear window. The 3 air vents that you see there echo the vintage Auto Union designs of the 30s and 40s that show up here. Audi's chief has also said that a production version of this vehicle would not be called the TT. Audi says this vehicle is more upmarket and actually larger than the old R8. So whereas the original TT started somewhere in the mid 30,000 range and the R8 was quite a bit more expensive, I would expect a production version of this to start in the $60,000 to $70,000 price point. Inside, to their credit, there are lots of physical controls in addition to, of course, some screens. The physical controls are made from anodized aluminum, and the center display that you see there is retractable, which Audi's had actually in production vehicles of the past. A lot of geometrical shapes here. That is a perfectly round steering wheel. No octagons, no flat areas. A lot of rectangles, squares, and circles otherwise. And the upholstery that you see is wool. And yes, I mentioned production because Audi does plan to bring this to market, and they reference the China speed 30-month development time. And if you do the math, that means by the end of 2027, we should see this vehicle in market. The timing suggests that this vehicle will not get the new Rivian software stack that Volkswagen Group is co-developing. That is actually targeted for another Audi product launching in 2028. But hopefully they will have fixed some of the current software problems by the time this vehicle launches. Underneath the production version of the Concept C, it's expected to share components with the upcoming Porsche electric 718 Boxer and Cayman. All of those are expected to ride on a modified version of the new PPE platform that was co-developed with Audi and Porsche, but rather than a skateboard with a flat battery pack, the battery pack would sit behind the seats to create more of a mid-engine proportion, and that would come as both rear drive and all-wheel drive. It's also worth noting that the original TT was quite the design icon, but it really didn't directly influence a lot of other Audi's designs. The Concept C is different in that we are expected to see a lot more of the Concept C's design elements on other future Audis, including a new entry-level model to replace both the Q2 and the A1 due in a couple of years. Another significant launch in Munich was the Neue Klasse, or New Class, specifically the iX3. The iX3 is the first entry off the New Class architecture, the result of a $22 billion investment, and it replaces the previous ICE-based iX3. So it used to be based off the gasoline-powered X3. Production of the iX3 starts late this year in Europe, so it'll launch in Europe early next year with US and China to follow, and eventually it will be built at BMW's plant in Mexico as well. The numbers here look really, really impressive. A WLTP range of almost 500 miles, an EPA range of 400 miles, a 400 kilowatt maximum charge rate, 231 miles in 10 minutes on the WLTP cycle, or about 186 miles on the EPA cycle. That's faster than almost anything else out there. A full charge in about 21 minutes and 463 horsepower, and 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. Visually, it's a pretty fresh looking design. It's clearly identifiable as a BMW, but it lacks some of the, shall we say, weirdness of some other recent BMWs. It's nicely proportioned. It's very solid looking. It's not gorgeous, but it's also not repulsive. They're claiming a drag coefficient of 0.24, which is not too bad. It does not look like a bar of soap. There is some character there. And it's shown with a nice optional 22-inch wheels. The clean sheet design carries over nothing from existing BMWs, either EV or otherwise. So this brand new architecture features a cell-to-pack and pack-to-open body construction. So not quite cell-to-body, as we're seeing some of the Chinese do, but something that is a little less complex and lighter weight. The new car, ironically, doesn't appear to be lighter than its ICE-based predecessor, which admittedly launched as rear drive, whereas this launches with an all-wheel drive setup. The 6th generation eDrive seems to hit all the right notes. The only thing that we haven't seen is any reference to lithium iron phosphate technology. But again, this is not a value-oriented product, so that's not a real super surprise. BMW notes a 40% reduction in energy losses, a 10% reduction in mass, comparably speaking, 20% reduction in manufacturing costs, 20% higher cell energy density, and a 30% increase in charging speed. All numbers that sound really, really good. The Neue Klasse also features BMW's new zonal architecture and what BMW calls the Heart of Joy, powered by 4 new super brains, which are said to be 10 times faster than previous BMWs in terms of processing capability. It also features the new symbiotic drive, which appears to include hands-free driving on the highway. So level 2++, maybe level 3 at some point, and promises a new and better driving experience. Inside the iX3, BMW had previously said its vision was an interior with no screen. So this is kind of an intermediate step. You have one giant screen there in the middle, but instead of a screen directly in front of the driver, you have what's called a panoramic iDrive. Basically, you have a really wide, low display at the base of the windshield, kind of a poor man's head up, but you can get an augmented reality head-up display in addition to what you see here in the photo. I haven't sat behind the wheel of this vehicle, but I am a fan of this layout. It certainly seems pretty intelligent and maybe a little less distracting. We'll see what happens once the media gets behind it as well. The parallelogram-shaped center touchscreen is also rather unique. It's not a typical square or rectangular display that you see from a lot of other automakers, and the display itself runs all the way to the edges of the housing. The fabric-covered dashboard and steering wheel controls are nice touches as well, although it does rely on haptic controls on the steering wheel, which a lot of folks say is maybe a little bit of a step backwards instead of actual physical switches. They do note that the switches will light up when needed and available, so you're not overly distracted by all these haptic switches in front of you. US prices, which are for a variant that's slightly better equipped than the base European model, are said to start around $60,000, and that's when the vehicle launches here in the middle of next year. That is quite a bit more than a Tesla Model Y, but arguably you are getting quite a bit more for your money. The price puts it in the range of the Audi Q6 e-tron, the Polestar 4, and the Cadillac Lyriq, and it seems to offer a very compelling value proposition. The next vehicle off this architecture will be the i3 sedan, which we'll see in production next year, and there will be more vehicles off this platform to follow. Also debuting in Munich are the VW ID.Polo twins. In the background there is the plain old ID.Polo, and up front is the VW ID.Polo GTI. And with this, Volkswagen has officially decided that recognizable brands are better than alphanumerics. And going forward, all of Volkswagen's EVs will use a name of some sort. So we used to see these vehicles as the ID.Tool and the ID GTI concepts, and now they will pick up the Poland name because lots of folks in Europe recognize that brand. And both of these will hit the market officially next year. They'll use a 38 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate or a 56 kilowatt hour NMC battery. The range will be up to about 280 miles in the European cycle, roughly equivalent to 240 miles on the EPA cycle, so not too bad. The charge speed at 125 kilowatts is pretty competitive, and there will be 4 power levels available from a front-mounted motor, up to 223 horsepower on the ID.Polo GTI. This new ID.Polo is a little bigger than the internal combustion-powered Polo, so they managed to keep the size, appropriate for an urban small car, and the targeted base price is about 25,000 euros. Inside is a 12.9-inch touchscreen with physical controls for both audio and climate control, and Volkswagen notes that there are no glue or hard plastics that's intended to boost material quality and reduce the environmental impact. With this nomenclature change, that's entirely likely that the facelifted ID.4 that's due next year, which is supposed to be pretty extensive, may come with a rebadge to ID Tiguan, and at some point a facelifted ID.7 might become the ID Passat as well. Continuing with the small electric theme, we have a couple of Mini JCW or John Cooper Works concepts that were co-developed with fashion brand Deus X Machina, the ICE Machina and the electric Skeg that you both see in this photo. The Machina is inspired by Mini's performance heritage. So it's got the red-white paint scheme, the 4 hood-mounted driving lights, big wheel flares, a single exhaust tip, carbon fiber seats, composite door panels, aluminum floor plates, an exposed roll cage, and additional toggle switches on the center console. And that harkens back to Mini's Monte Carlo rally success in the 1960s. The Skeg that you see in the upper right is inspired by surfing. The body is actually made from semi-transparent fiberglass to cut the overall mass by about 15%. A rear spoiler modeled after a surfboard's concave underside, roof-mounted straps to carry the aforementioned surfboards. You can see those there in yellow. Water-repellent neoprene upholstery and wetsuit storage trays. Neither of these vehicles are headed for production, but just a way for Mini to do a little interesting co-branding. And finally, we'll get off the electric roller coaster and talk about an internal combustion vehicle, in this case, the Volkswagen T-Roc. The T-Roc is a compact SUV coupe that slots above the T-Cross and below the Tiguan for non-North American markets. And Volkswagen just introduced the latest generation in Europe. This is reportedly the last new Volkswagen-branded internal combustion vehicle. Theoretically, every Volkswagen going forward that comes out, every new VW, will be electric. Unless it isn't. And so they, of course, have the option to change their mind if they're so inclined. So we'll wait and see, but that's the current plan. The new T-Roc features front and rear light bars, wheels up to 20 inches, inside a 10-inch IP cluster and a 12.9-inch touchscreen, as well as an available head-up display. And yes, some physical controls. The most significant thing about the T-Roc, though, is what you can't see. Although it launches with a mild hybrid powertrain, next year it will add a full hybrid. This is the first non-plug-in full hybrid we've seen from the Volkswagen Group. It's reportedly technologically similar to Toyota's system, which would include some short-range EV capabilities. And so we may see similar non-plug-in hybrid technology propagate across the lower end of the VW Group portfolio. There will be a T-Roc R performance model as well that will be electrified coming in 2027. But this will be the only MQB-based vehicle without plug-in capability. So, we know that Volkswagen has kind of adjusted some of their EV forecasts and plans, and part of that is adding more hybrids into the portfolio, and that now includes not just plug-in hybrids, which they already had on the shelf, but conventional and non-plug-in hybrids as well. So more to come on that topic later. And that about brings us to the end of this week in AutoPerspectives news. If you like what you see and hear, please subscribe and share, and welcome as always to our new subscribers. If you want to learn more, visit autoperspectives.net, check out our blog, and we will see you back here with more news coming out of Munich. Thanks, and so long.